There's a kind of silence only some people know. The silence that comes when no one calls your name at night, when no one says come home, because there's no one waiting there. People without parents grow up learning to comfort themselves, not because they want to, but because no one else ever really did. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like you raised yourself, this story might feel a little too familiar. Have you ever wondered why you sometimes feel older than everyone else around you? Why you can sense other people's moods before they even speak? It's because when you grow up without parents, you become your own emotional parent. You study the world like a survival manual. Every smile, every silence, every argument, you read them as warnings, not words. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a mind trained by loneliness to watch, protect, and adapt. But deep down, it's not power. It's fear wearing armor. You learn early that love can vanish overnight. So you keep your distance, even from people who care. You tell yourself, I'm fine alone. But some nights, when the room feels too big and too quiet, your chest whispers, I just want someone to stay. If this line made you feel something, stop for a second. Type in the comments, sometimes I feel like I raised myself. Because you're not the only one. You never were. Let's go deeper. When a child grows up without parents through loss, abandonment, or neglect, their brain rewires itself around survival instead of safety. They learn to predict instead of to trust. They build walls before they ever build homes. But here's the truth most people never hear. That same pain creates an extraordinary kind of strength. Because when no one comes to save you, you learn how to save yourself. You become the kind of person who notices everything, who feels everything, who carries invisible stories behind every smile. You might be that person. You're the one who keeps listening when others stop. You're the one who forgives too easily because you know what being forgotten feels like. And sometimes, you wonder if your kindness is your strength or your scar. Let's talk about that. Psychologists say children who grow up without parents often develop what's called compensatory attachment, a deep craving for emotional security, hidden under independence. You say, I don't need anyone, but your heart whispers, please, someone stay consistent. If you relate to that, comment one word below, consistent, because that single word holds a lifetime of meaning. Here's something powerful. People with no parents often become natural healers, counselors, friends, protectors, because they know the taste of silence, and they never want others to feel it. But that empathy comes at a cost. When you spend years being strong for yourself, you forget how to be soft with yourself. You become the person who comforts others while secretly breaking inside. Have you ever smiled through pain so no one asks questions? Have you ever said, I'm okay just because you were tired of explaining? That's the quiet language of people who grew up alone. So here's something I want you to think about before we go further. You are not broken because you didn't have parents. You are shaped by survival, but you are not defined by it. The world may have failed to raise you, but you've been raising yourself ever since. And that's not weakness. That's resilience in its purest form. In the next part, we'll dive deeper into how this early loneliness affects relationships, love, and self-worth in adulthood. Why some people push away love when they want it most. And why the ones who grew up alone often become the strongest souls in the room. Before we move to that part, tell me in the comments, what's the hardest part of growing up without parents? There's no right answer. Only honesty. When you grow up without parents, love doesn't feel safe, it feels like a test. A test you're sure you'll fail, no matter how hard you try. You tell yourself you want connection, but the moment someone gets too close, you pull back. You don't do it because you don't care. You do it because deep down, you don't believe love will stay. Psychologists call this avoidant attachment. It's what happens when your first teachers of love were absence and silence. You learned that love disappears. So, you built walls tall enough that no one could leave you again, because no one could enter. But here's the secret pain. Those walls don't keep out the loneliness. They only keep you trapped inside it. Have you ever met someone who made you feel safe, but instead of getting closer, you pulled away? You told yourself, they'll leave anyway. That's not weakness. That's your nervous system trying to protect a child who still remembers the night no one came home. If you've ever done that, type in the comments, I protect myself too much. Because sometimes, even strength can become a cage. People with no parents often live with two voices inside them. One says, be independent. The other whispers, please, don't let me do this alone. And both are true. You want to need someone, but you're terrified of what needing means. You learned early that depending on people can break you. So you trained yourself to survive without help. You became the caretaker, the achiever, the listener, always the strong one. But tell me honestly, when was the last time someone truly listened to you? You might not even know how to be comforted anymore. When someone offers help, your body tenses. You smile and say, I'm good. But your heart says, I've never been held like that. Psychology calls this emotional deprivation schema, the belief that no one will ever truly meet your emotional needs. It's like an invisible weight that follows you everywhere, making you think you have to earn love, prove your worth, or fix yourself to deserve care. But here's something I want you to hear clearly. You were never hard to love. You were just forced to be strong before you ever felt safe. That's not your fault. It never was. When people who grew up without parents finally experience love, real, patient, stable love, it feels foreign, almost painful, because peace feels suspicious when chaos was your normal. You wait for the storm, even in sunshine. Have you ever ruined something good because you were sure it was temporary? Have you ever tested someone's love just to see if they'd stay? That's your past trying to confirm its own story. It's your brain saying, this is too safe. It can't be real. If that hit home, comment this word, real, because deep down, that's what you've always wanted, something real. Now here's the part that hurts. When you grow up with no parents, you often become the parent to everyone else. You fix, you guide, you carry. You're the strong one in your friend group, the reliable one, the one who never breaks. Until you do, and no one knows how to help you back up. It's a lonely kind of love. To give endlessly and receive nothing back. To be surrounded by people, yet feel unseen. Here's the truth. You learn to love through responsibility, not through rest. But love isn't earned through exhaustion. It's received through openness. And it's okay if you're still learning how to do that. It's okay if you don't know how to ask for comfort. It's okay if letting someone hold you feels terrifying. Healing starts the moment you admit that you want it. The moment you say, I'm tired of pretending I'm fine. I want you to sit with one question. What would home feel like if you never had one? Would it be a person? A quiet room? A version of yourself that finally feels safe? Type in the comments what home means to you. Because maybe, just maybe, the home you've been searching for isn't a place, it's peace. There's a strange kind of emptiness that follows people who grow up without parents. You can be in a crowded room, laughing, talking, surrounded by people, and still feel like you don't belong anywhere. It's not because you don't fit in. It's because no one ever showed you what belonging feels like. When love wasn't consistent, connection became confusing. So now, even when someone cares about you, your mind whispers, don't trust it. It won't last. You carry that voice into friendships, relationships, and every place you go. You start to believe that being unseen is safer than being disappointed, that being independent means being invincible. But deep down, what you really want is a place to exhale, a place to be known without having to explain yourself. Psychologists call this disorganized attachment, a mix of wanting love but fearing it at the same time. You crave closeness but push it away. You want stability, but chaos feels familiar. It's like your mind is wired for contradiction. And the hardest part is that you blame yourself for it. You tell yourself, maybe I'm just too much, or maybe I was never meant to be loved. But here's the truth that psychology and human experience both agree on. You didn't break yourself, you adapted. Your habits, your defenses, your silence were all survival strategies, and they worked because you made it here. You're still standing. But survival isn't the same as living. At some point, you have to stop surviving your past and start reparenting yourself. That means giving yourself the things your parents couldn't: patience, comfort, understanding, forgiveness. You start talking to yourself differently. Stop calling yourself weak when you cry. Stop rushing your healing because someone else says you should be over it. You start giving yourself what you always needed to hear. You're safe now. You're doing enough. You're not unlovable. When you reparent yourself, you stop chasing people who remind you of your wounds and stop trying to earn love from those who can't give it. You start realizing that the love you were searching for has been waiting inside you all along. If that truth makes your chest tighten, it's because it's the truth you've avoided your whole life. You are not missing half of yourself. You are whole. You just learned your worth through pain instead of presence. Ask yourself, when was the last time you showed up for yourself the way you wished someone had shown up for you? Was it when you took care of your own heart after heartbreak, comforted yourself through a lonely night, or finally said, I deserve better? If that's you, write in the comments, I showed up for myself, because that sentence is your new beginning. People with no parents often develop an inner critic, a voice that says, you're not enough. Try harder. That voice was born from years of feeling unseen and believes love must be earned. But love was never meant to be a reward. It's meant to be a home. And even if no one built that home for you, you can still build it yourself. Brick by brick, breath by breath, choice by choice. Healing doesn't happen when you forget your pain. It happens when you finally look at it without running, when you hold the child inside you and whisper, you didn't deserve what happened to you, but you deserve everything good that comes next. So if you're watching this and something inside you feels like crying, let it. Tears aren't weakness. They're proof that you're human enough to feel again. Before you move on, take one deep breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. Feel that? That's what being alive feels like. You're still here, and that's your victory. There's a question inside almost everyone who grew up without parents. Who am I? Because of it. Without someone to mirror your emotions, you learn to see yourself through others, measuring worth by who stays, who leaves, who notices you. When no one stays, you start believing maybe you're the problem. Psychologists call this identity diffusion. You become a chameleon, smiling when you're breaking, saying, I'm fine, because no one would know what to do with the truth. If you've ever pretended to be okay just to make others comfortable, right, I hide behind okay. People without parents often carry quiet loneliness, not just being alone, but never feeling understood. You might chase success, help others, or isolate yourself because peace feels safer than disappointment. Loneliness isn't just the absence of people, it's the absence of emotional safety, which you rarely experienced. But loneliness isn't who you are, it's what happened to you. Healing begins when you separate the two. Growing up without parents also means losing your witness. No one saw your first steps, or said, I'm proud of you. So you chase acknowledgement, but it starts within yourself. Stop asking, who am I without parents? And start asking, who do I want to become despite that? Identity isn't inherited, it's created. You can become gentle, grounded, loving, without fear, trusting slowly, and living fully. Maybe family isn't blood, it's the friend who checks on you, the teacher who believed in you, the stranger who said, I understand. That's love, connection, and something sacred. People without parents often develop extraordinary empathy. You've seen darkness but choose light. Know pain yet show kindness. Understand silence yet speak with compassion. If your pain has made you more human, type evolved. Loneliness ends not when people love you, but when you love yourself enough to let people in. You were never meant to disappear into your pain, you were meant to rise from it, become the person your younger self needed most. That's your identity. That's your truth. If you're ready to rebuild meaning, forgive your past, and create peace, type ready. You've carried the story long enough, the pain, the silence, the loneliness, but this is where it begins to change. Healing doesn't start when the pain stops. It starts when you finally allow yourself to feel it. If you grew up without parents, you probably learned to stay strong too early, holding in tears because no one was coming to wipe them, solving problems you didn't create, and believing crying doesn't fix things. But strength isn't about never breaking. It's about breaking and still choosing to rebuild. Psychologists explain that when a child doesn't receive comfort, their nervous system learns to survive in alert mode. And even as adults, calm feels foreign, peace feels suspicious. And love can feel dangerous because it means trusting something you could lose. But what if you stopped running from peace? What if you allowed quiet to feel safe again? That's where healing starts. In small, invisible moments, where you finally exhale and say, I made it. Forgiveness is another step, not excusing what happened, but freeing yourself from what keeps happening inside. Say quietly to yourself, I forgive, not because they deserve it, but because I deserve to rest. Maybe you'll never hear, I'm proud of you, from those you needed it from most. But you became everything they were supposed to be, your own protector, comfort, and stability. You became both parent and child, and that's not weakness, that's power. You are living proof that love can grow where it was never planted, and a reminder that family isn't only blood, kindness matters. Some days, healing will feel strong. Other days, the little child inside you will still ask, why me? That's okay, you don't need to silence them. Just listen and whisper. You're safe now. Life changes when you stop chasing love and start creating it. When you stop begging to be understood and start understanding yourself. When you stop searching for home in others and start becoming your own home. Healing isn't about forgetting. It's about transforming pain into purpose. Maybe all of it happened so that someone lost and lonely would find this message and realize they're not alone. If this speaks to you, type in the comments, I'm becoming my own home, because that's where your story truly begins. You don't owe the world a perfect version of yourself. You owe yourself a peaceful one. Peace starts when you stop being who you needed to be and start becoming who you want to be. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your freedom. If you've made it this far, you've already done the hardest part. You've faced your truth. So take a deep breath, close your eyes, and say, I'm not what I lost. I'm what I've learned. And if you're still here, remember you're not alone anymore. This space is for you. Share your story below. Someone will read it and feel less invisible. If this spoke to your soul, don't scroll yet subscribe, because every week we talk about the kind of pain no one talks about out loud, and maybe together we can heal a little more each time.